Welcome to the Keeping the Nostalgia Alive show. I am your host, Billy Powell. You are either A, listening to this at keepingthenostalgiaalive.podbean.com. That's keeping the nostalgia alive, all one word, .podbean.com. Or you're watching this on our YouTube channel, which you can go to YouTube and just type in the Keeping the Nostalgia Alive show. And please subscribe. There's some great videos on there. I love the game of basketball. I love the 6 degrees of separation. It can always come back to someone you know, or someone that you've been friends with or related to, or whatever it is in life. And today we have someone who is just sounds just as nuttier as I when it comes to nostalgia and the memories and the love of the game of basketball. And he is an author, and he's written a book which is called Armstrong Basketball: A Journey Through the Glory Days. And the author joins us today, which is Ron, and we'll get into how he was nicknamed Skippy Hancock. So the book is called Armstrong Basketball: A Journey Through the Glory Days by Ron Skippy Hancock. He's also an Evansville North Husky. Real quick, for those out there, can you name any other Huskies? Okay, now, so Ron, thank you for joining us and taking some time to help keep the nostalgia alive and talk about your book and your love of the game of the basketball.
Thank you, Billy. I appreciate it. It's fun to be on here with you, and I hope I have some insight and make it nice to interview me. I appreciate it so much.
While you were in the waiting room and before you came on, we were talking about this shirt I have on today, and it's number 21, which is Roger Kaiser, who was the first Georgia Tech All-American out of Dale, Indiana. And you have actually played against teams that he coached, and you've actually become friends with him.
That's right. He's a great man, and I don't know if you've read his book. His book's wonderful, but I've gotten to know him a little bit in the past few years here, but I was aware of him in college, but I didn't know he was that outstanding of a ball player until I really kind of looked into it a little bit. But yeah, he's a wonderful guy, wonderful family man, and I mean, tremendous basketball player. Competed against him at West Georgia. They were always our nemesis. They always kind of like had our number. They had some great teams. We had some great teams, but we just kind of couldn't get over the hump with them. And we've laughed a little bit about that and talked about that also. But yeah, he's a tremendous. That his book is tremendous. If it feels like leather, shoot it. And he's just a great guy. Yes, I think plenty of people will you know that yourself.
He's one of those guys where I think you could give him a script of the dumbest story of all time, and he can make it interesting and funny.
Right. Yeah.
He just has one of those voices.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He's one time. It's been some time ago. I was playing recreation ball. After college, we had some great teams. The guys still weren't finished playing yet. If they didn't, if they weren't able to pursue it for money in the pros or whatever. So we had what we call recreation teams, and we were at the National Guard Armory. And I guess this was probably 15 years after I'd been out of Armstrong, and he comes strolling into the game, and it was funny. I recognized him right off and went over and shook his hand and grabbed his hand and say, Roger, and it was really neat to see him. I said, what are you doing here? You here recruiting? I said, my time's up. All my days are done. But yeah, he's a funny guy. He's got all kinds of stories. Just a great individual.
Well, before we get to your millionaire status of becoming an author,
Yeah.
let's chat a little bit about Evansville, Indiana. Tell everybody a little bit about where you were born and raised, mom, dad, brothers and sisters, and when did you really get into sports, and was basketball the first one that you got into?
Well, actually, no, basketball wasn't. I thought I was going to be a football player, and I loved football first. My brother-in-law played at Evansville Bossy, and he was about 6, 8 years older than me. So he kind of led me that way into football. But my mother and father are Elmer and Mary Hancock. They're from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, both of them. And my dad died when I was very young. He was ill, and he had Alzheimer's, but they called it hardening the arteries back then. So he was ill right away by the time I was 10, 12 years old, and he passed when I was 14. So that, that was traumatic. That was just, just left me empty, just a big void in my life. But I had 5 sisters. I'm the youngest. And I just, football took off with football, and then basketball. We lived down in the city. There was always an alley with a basketball goal on somebody's garage behind my house. And that's where, I picked the game up, probably third or fourth grade, and spent many hours in that alley, man, on somebody's garage, just shooting hoops. And then about 5 blocks from where I lived, Bossy Field, nostalgic Bossy Field, which of Bossy Field, the big, I think it's the 3rd biggest ballpark in the nation. Well, anyway, those lights were always on. The Evansville Braves and the East Sox and the Triplets, and those lights, and we could see those lights, and you could hear that crowd, man, when somebody hit a home run or somebody made a touch. They also played football there. Somebody made a touchdown on Friday night, and I think that just sort of stirred something in me, man. I wanted to hear that crowd cheering for me, possibly, but I was far off. But you could always see those lights on and hear that crowd, and that was so neat growing up to be able to experience that.
Ron, it's kind of heartwarming. My family is originally from Brea, Kentucky.
Ray, okay.
Brea, there's a Brea College there, but I think they got to Indiana as fast as they could. But my family used to call it the hardening of the arteries, and I rolled that out one time to somebody, and they're like, "What in the world is that?" So I think those that were in Kentucky had a different lingo than those who were across in the state of Indiana at times.
I hear you. Yeah, I think you're right. But it was called hardening the arteries, and the doctors even called it that. But it was just really the closing of the artery where the blood couldn't sufficiently flow. And, the last parts of that disease, that drug, I've thought about this all my life because it is genetic. And, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to end up like my father. But, it's a fact of life. And I think our diet has a lot to do with that, American diet, because in India, I'm getting scientific on you. In India, where there's 1.3 billion people, they have the lowest Alzheimer's rate of anybody in the world, and it's because of their diet, because they have a lot of curcumin and cumin in their diet, and their spices, and then plus they probably don't eat much meat, and they have more vegetables and fruit and stuff. But I don't know their entire diet, but I found that interesting that many people, they'd have such a low tolerant or death rate for Alzheimer's. But yeah, it's affected my family. I've got 2 older sisters right now that are both there in nursing homes. So one of them has a great attitude. One of them is real quiet. It's funny. One, you wouldn't even know that anything's wrong. She's in more of an assisted living. And when we go see her, she's always been a laugher and cracking up and joking. And that's what we do. But the more you're around her, you start to understand the significance of the disease. She'll ask a lot of the same questions, and then she'll go, "Oh, I know." And then I'll tell her, Barb, and then she'll remember all of a sudden. But yes, it's affected my family, and so many. It's a dramatic disease for the U.S. and for the world. Really, I would think that they could get a cure, maybe.
You know, and I agree. And, I've had family members who've gone through that. And at a young age, as a kid, you would see this and you would think it was funny, or you would make fun of those. And, but, I was a child, so, didn't know. And as you get a little bit older, and I'm getting ready to turn 54, you start to really think about this and what you're going to turn into as you get older, and you start remembering, your family members that went through this, and it's genetic on my side too, and so, it's sad, but this is what you and I do to keep us from going down that sad path, and as documenting everything, loving nostalgia, love the history of the game of basketball. My next question though is, we're all fans of teams because of where we geographically grew up. So I'm assuming if you liked baseball, you were a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, you got it. That's right. I still am. I watch Channel 47 on Spectrum pretty well every night. Yeah, the Cardinals. Football was the Bears early on, Chicago Bears, because that's who we got on TV. I mean, I'm talking about years ago. And then, of course, the Colts after Indiana got the Colts. In the latter years, I've followed them, of course, and I've been up there to a few games.
In Indianapolis for me, and then you got down there, you got Cincinnati. Indianapolis was the farm club for the Reds. It's always interesting, and you guys are like right on the border there. You guys all should be Cincinnati Reds fans, but you guys become Cardinals fans, which is it boggles my mind at times. But it's interesting how that works out.
I have been over to Riverfront Stadium when the Big Red Machine was there with the Rose and Perez and Johnny Bench, and so yeah, I was kind of in between, but the Cardinals kind of Bob Gibson and a few of those NL pennants back in '67, and of course Ozzie and all those great players. Rowland from up here in Jasper played third base. Scott Rowland, a great basketball player, great third baseman, and just right up the road from Jasper. So yeah, I like the Cardinals. They're fun to watch. I'm trying to think of Whitey Herzog, when they ran so much back when the long ball wasn't as valuable and as important as it has become. Lou Brock stole all those bases, and that was interesting. They were more of a hit and run type team than depending on the HR, the home run.
We've given way too much time to the St. Louis Cardinals, so let's move along. Ron, what were some of, and growing up, I'm assuming you were an Evansville Aces fan. Talk us through going to Roberts Stadium. Were you a basketball fan of other colleges? Did you watch or listen to any professional basketball? And who kind of grabbed you as basketball players when at a young age?
Yes, Evansville Aces, most definitely. I cut my teeth on Evansville Aces. Me and my friend, my mom would take us one game, and then his dad would take us the next game. We were about 10 years old, 10, 12 years old, I guess. And Jerry Sloan, Larry Humes, and yeah, that undefeated Aces team that won the Division II. They won two, didn't they? I know they were undefeated. 65.
Yeah.
And oh yes, Jerry Sloan, man, he was, and Hughes would shoot a hook shot from the dead corner, or in between the circle and the baseline. That little bank shot, he'd shoot a 20-foot hook shot, and we'd go back to the locker room. They allowed kids to come through after the games, and it was just, I was in awe of those guys. Sloan was such a vicious rebounder and scorer and defender. He just and then of course he went on and played, and then we had such rivalries with Kentucky Wesleyan and the Salukis, SIU, with Walt Frazier and Dickie Garrett and some of those guys. Wesleyan had Dallas Thornton and George Tinsley. I mean, these guys are iconic players that a lot of people, younger people, don't know them, but I do. They're the top of the line player. Well, Walt Frazier, a lot of people know Clyde Frazier, but man, I tell you what, Robert Stadium would pack them in, and they had these wooden bleachers around the top. I don't know if you've ever been to Robert Stadium. Seats about, I think it seats 13,000, 12,500 or something. Plenty of times they went over 12,500. The fire marshals turned their head. But those wooden bleachers up there, they would start stomping those wooden bleachers all around the top. Around the top was concrete and the concession stands and everything. And then the permanent seating was down before they changed it. They changed it back. I'm not sure when they changed it. They put permanent seating all the way throughout. It wasn't the same. But yeah, that is a great facility. Just and there'd be smoke around that scoreboard because they allowed smoking years ago, cigarette smoking in there, and they would all rise, be a cloud around the scoreboard. But that was back, in the '60s. Of course, they stopped all that. And but what else do you ask me?
So those photos where the smoke is rising. They always intrigue me. You'll see that at professional basketball games and all that too. It's just the atmosphere at that time. A lot of people don't know too or realize that the Evansville Aces could beat anybody on the national level. I mean, they were the modern time UCLA, in my opinion, and could play to everyone, but just weren't in that Division I category.
Well, you're right, Billy. They played. They played probably 3 or 4 Big Ten teams that
and
year
whipped them
and beat them. I know they beat Iowa, and I don't say this real quiet if Dave Shellhouse watches this, but they beat Purdue, and they beat everybody. But they beat the Big Ten team, Notre Dame. I think they beat Notre Dame. And yeah, UCLA, that's back when UCLA was having all those runs with Wooden and all those great UCLA teams. And there was talk that year. It was a shame that it never happened, but it would have been nice to see Evansville play UCLA because I believe they could have I believe you're right. I believe they could have handled them. It would have been a good game. You never know, but they were that talented. They were that good. Sam Watkins, Larry Humes,
Buster Briley,
Herb Williams, Buster Riley, or Briley. Man, he could shoot from out. I've never seen anybody shoot that. It was almost a set shot. It was almost like a two-hand, but he had 35-foot range. Back then, that was unheard of. Nobody, it was just a 2-point shot. So it's not like today where they line up behind that ready to fire because it's worth more. They've figured out that they're going to beat you by shooting more 3-point shots. But Buster Briley had 35, 40-foot range.
How about the robes? What did you think of the robes when you were a kid and going to the games?
Outstanding, all the colors. And Arab McCutcheon was a great coach, no doubt. He knew they went through so many different eras where they platooned. I mean, when they didn't have the great 5 to 7 deep players, they had 12 players that were pretty average, and they had a platoon system, and they wore teams out like that. They did that a few years, but yes, those were great times in my life. I think I really uh, watched Sloan the most because he was just so intense, and he was so. I actually played against Jerry at Carson Center and Shell House too. I don't remember Dave as much, but there was. I'm telling some stuff here now. Shell House probably wouldn't want heard, but that Shell House and Sloan would play games to 50, and uh, Jerry would wax him a lot of times. And Dave could score on anybody, could shoot from anywhere. But Jerry was that tough. And this is the honest to God true story. I was 17, 18 years old, junior and senior in high school. We'd go over there and we'd be some of the last picks. Sloan had such a tremendous workout ethic, but he was with the Bulls then, and he would lift weights and run. I think he ran 5 miles a day, and then lift weights and then play in the gym, pickup games for an hour or so. Well, we were in there one game, and I went up for a rebound. I was pretty good size. I was an inside rebounder, and if that's I'm just going to get some rebounds and maybe put one back in every now and then. That was the only way I was going to play. I hadn't really honed my game yet. I was really a rugged type rebounder. And anyway, I went for a rebound, and I was up there pretty close to the rim or the rim above, and I felt this shadow. It felt like come above me and snap that rebound above me. If my hands would have been in the way of that rim, he would have snapped them probably. And he popped that ball and almost exploded. It sounded like a cannon going off in the gym. Come down, cleared the rebound, and then dribbled down the court. And I said, "What in the world just happened?" But that's my Jerry Sloan story. But I got in. I was in the game, Billy. I was just a senior in high school, and I was still coming. Still kind of making my way, getting a lot better. And,
What was Evansville North's athletics or basketball like, or tradition like, just before you got there at Evansville North? And tell us a little bit, and then go into a little bit of how you acclimated to high school athletics.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Evansville was very tough through the 60s and 70s. And Shell House, that year, I believe the year that he was a senior, I think Bossy won the state championship. I think they won it 2 years in a row somewhere in the early 60s. I think 2 years, or they won it one year, and they got beat the final game the next year. And North had a great team with Dave Shellhouse and Ted Mattingly. And Shellhouse is just lighted up. I was a little bit young. I hadn't really didn't go to too many games, but always I knew more about him in college, how good he had become. And of course, the fact that he went to North, but I did see him a few times. He had a really odd free throw. If the basket was north and south, he would stand parallel. I don't know if he did this through college and pros continue that, but he would stand with his feet parallel to the line and shoot over his shoulder. It was really odd. So I tried to emulate that in the driveway and shoot that, but he could hit it. But that's how he shot his free throws. And then when I got to North, I made the freshman team, but Coach Hoagland kept about 18 players, and I was way down the list. And I shouldn't have been, but I was. and I knew I wasn't going to play, and I quit. I quit the team. There was no way he was going to play 15, 18 guys on a regular basis, so I just played on the playground, got more playing time. And then my sophomore year is when my father died. I was 14 years old, going to be 15. And I didn't play sports. It happened right before school started, and I was just devastated. Nothing, life wasn't right. It didn't feel good. So I didn't play sports. And then my junior year, I went out for football. I called Coach Riley, and I called him summer practices had already started. And I called him 2 weeks late. He said, "Yeah, you can come out." And I went out, and I got a starting defensive end position. I beat this one guy out right away, and he was madder than a hornet at me. But that's tough. But then and then they got me out of gym class in basketball. Said, "You're going to play basketball this year, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, I had thought about it, and I didn't know, And they said, "Well, Coach Ralph said you are going to play, aren't you?" And I said, "I did." So I started most of the games my junior year at center, and so then my senior year, I'd really gotten a lot better. I really had improved over the summer. Played a lot, you know. Football was still played, football again my senior year. We had played varsity, started 2 years, and then my senior year I really come on in basketball. And I was always a little bit slow coming out from football, wanted to tackle and knock somebody down first, first month of the season. But then the more I got in basketball shape, came right around. We had a really good team. We had a really good team. A lot of teams picked us preseason to win state, and had a lot of, and we followed up the 67 state team, which just won the state with Bobby Ford and Steve Holland. And that was a great team. That was, back the one class system, which was just very, to me, it's the best system. I think it's watered down a little bit now with all those state champions, but that's just me. I think with 5 basketball players, you can find five good players, and you can compete against the bigger schools. No more Milan stories like Bobby Plum and that group, but there's a lot more state champions. A lot more kids get that chance. So I understand too. But we followed the state team, Bobby Ford, and he was awesome. He was a big man that could move. He had so many moves around the goal. And they went all the way. He set the state scoring record in the Final Four. I think McGinnis came right back in '69 and broke it, but he broke a long-standing Final Four scoring record. He was a tremendous player, big guy, 6'7", 230 that could move, but he had a soft touch. He could shoot from out, but he mostly, earned his way under the goal, rebounded, and of course I wore 22. That was his number, and they wanted to compare. I wasn't Bob Ford. I was a project, and I was coming on, and I was a really good player, but I was more of a forward. But I played center because they said that's where you're going to play, and if I wanted to play, that's where I was going to play. So definitely it was a no-brainer to me. I'd rather play than sit on the pine and watch. So that's what I did. I rebounded and put them back in underneath. And was a good player, though. I really came on my senior year. Was fortunate enough to get a chance to go on to college. I really was. I wasn't recruited heavily. They didn't recruit. It wasn't like it is now. It was word of mouth a lot of times. And ended up going to Armstrong State College. Was Steve Holland was on that state team, and he had transferred from Stetson in DeLand, Florida. He had 1 year left, and he told Coach Alexander down there at Armstrong about me, and Coach Alexander took me on Steve's word that I'd be a good player for him. And so there, I took off. That was my next 4 years was at Armstrong, and really developed into a player. 6'5", I wasn't likely to play center anymore. So, and, you know, when you're on the playground, Billy, you're shooting from out, you know, but when you're in a game situation and the coach tells you, you know, you're center, you set screens, you rebound, you do that. But I could shoot, and just kind of honed my game. I could always handle the ball. It was, you know, it's kind of odd being as tall as I was. I could handle the ball. I'm talking a lot. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, 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 no. This is what the show is all about.
Okay. And so I could handle the ball really well. And we were a big team at North, and teams figured out they could beat us by pressing us. We didn't have the best guards in the world. We were tall. When Mike Smith started, he was 6'10" or 11. He was a junior, and he kind of started. We were a better team, I thought. I know we were, but I played center. But I played forward when he played center. And then Harold Miles was 6'3". So we were 6'10", 6'5", 6'3" across the front line. And then Dockery was 6'5", and Terry Eves was 6'2". So we were tall, but we were a little bit slow, and we weren't the best ball handlers in the world. But a lot of times we developed a way to break the press. I would break up to the center, to the half court line, and get the ball and turn and dribble to the free throw line. I got pretty adapted at that. We broke a lot of presses. So I think I carried that on into college, started dribbling the ball a lot better, stretched my shot out, got to be where 20, 25 feet was a decent range for me. I knock it down and, you know, just dribble down the court as fast as I could and pull up. And I read a book of Jerry West said that he practiced that. And I practiced that in the gym by myself. I would dribble from inline to the top of the key or to the free throw line and stop and try to go straight up and not float or, you know, move at all, and jump straight up. And I got it deft. I got really good at that. So college was good. You know, I was preseason All-American my junior and senior year, but I played with a guy. They don't usually pick two All-Americans from one team. I played with a guy, Ike Williams. He's the leading scorer in school history. He was flashy. He was great. And, you know, he made first team All-American. So it wasn't likely that, but I was preseason All-American. So, you know, it was just my transition and just moving to the next level. Everything fell together for me. And, and that's, other things had to get validated, I think is why I wrote this book. I think things like a lot of awards came to me later on, and it just kind of validated, you know, that I was really that I didn't know I was that good. But
where else could you have gone to school besides Armstrong? What were the other possibilities, and how easy or what made your choice for Armstrong?
Well, you know what? I wrote these down. I didn't have a lot of choices, Billy, but Hanover, and it's odd, or it's not odd, but Dale Harris was a coach at Hanover in the early 70s. What that would have been awesome to play under him. You know, I thought about that. I just kind of put it all together, and this was years after I had, you know, Dell didn't have that kind of reputation yet. He just was starting too, you know. But I just thought to myself after, you know, I did some research, and I was like, man, Dell Harris was at Hanover when they recruited me. I could have played for him. And then Vincennes Junior College, they recruited me. Harold, they were a stepping stone from West Georgia, recruited heavily from Vincennes. Foots Walker and Tommy Turner. Edmonds, a lot of players. Harold, my high school teammate, went to Vincennes, and Mike Darrett that played at Evansville Boston went to Vincennes. He was a tremendous player. And then Brevard Junior College down in Florida, and then Oakland City, and then ISUE before they become. It was ISUE before. What's their name now? lost track there. But yeah, there's just a handful of schools. Billy and Armstrong was, with Steve being from Evansville North. I really didn't know him. He was a senior superstar, and I was a freshman. That was really kind of and he was cocky and he was good. And he was a really good player. And that was a 12-hour trip back then. That was not just going down to Hopkinsville. You were there for wasn't likely that my family was going to come down there, anytime soon. And I got back for Christmas once a year. So it was, I was 17 years old, and that was a long ways to haul for being away from home. It was a big step.
You don't feel bad if you think you're talking long, because I actually still have Roger Kaiser on the phone trying to get him off of the phone. So you're doing okay. Um, Ron, where'd you get the nickname Skippy?
It's not a great story or some significant story or like I was skipping class or I was something like that. But when we got to Armstrong, me and Steve, we went down there in this he had a 57 station wagon. It looked like a hearse, actually. And we went down there 2 weeks early. And the school wasn't open, meals weren't provided, and we went down there early to settle into the apartments and everything. And I had a jar of peanut butter. I mean, and I ate a lot of peanut butter and crackers. Man, you're starving. When you're 17 years old. We weren't able to go to the mess hall yet at school and get our meals. So I was just stocked up on peanut butter, and Steve named me Skippy, and it wasn't even Skippy peanut butter. It was Peter Pan. I gotta get that out there. It was Peter. I like Peter Pan better, but anyway, that's what everybody called me, and that stuck. And nobody, that's what they call me in Savannah, and always did, still do. But nobody hardly up here in Indiana knows that. My close friends know that and tease me, and out of just knowing it, they'll call me that. But yeah, that's my name, and it's stuck down there. And Skippy at 18 years old is okay, but Skippy at 65, not as cool.
Well, I actually thought it was maybe basketball related, because I can on the back cover of your book I could see a basketball player being named Skippy. So, but the peanut butter story is actually a great story. What did Ron want to be at the end of high school, and then what did Ron want to be toward the end of college when he grew up?
Well, I definitely wanted to continue to play basketball. I actually probably could have played football too if I would have bulked up. And I hated weights, and I didn't want to, get up to 250 and lift weights all the time. But I certainly wasn't through, I didn't think, with basketball. I certainly, I would have been the first to I didn't get my degree, I'm just a few hours short. But I would have been the first from the family to graduate with the degree. And, it wasn't like a lot of colleges where they help you finish. They were pretty, the budget wasn't like Ohio State and Purdue and some of these schools where they go ahead and put an athlete through another year. It's very hard to get your degree in 4 years. You know, so that's one thing I really regret. I did enroll uh, in the 80s, I think, at Evansville College. It took 15 hours. I'm about 30. And the editor of my book actually thought, well, maybe they will grant you, uh, graduate you with this book. But they have merged now. Armstrong has with Georgia Southern, and so they're no longer Armstrong. That was another that I hated that, but that they consolidate all the time, and Georgia Southern is a lot bigger, but they still have the Armstrong campus. But then after college, I man, I wanted, I think I missed out on coaching. I really would have been a good coach. I've coached both of my girls and my son all the way up, and I just what I knew. And I missed that opportunity. I did. So I got on at Veterans, which is a public utility, and at that point in time of my life, there was about 5 places in Evansville: Meade Johnson's, Siggyco, Alcoa, without a real trade or without a college degree, that if you got on those places, you had a lifetime job. So that's what I did. I got on at Siggyco. A lady at church, my mom would ask her about once a month, you got anything down there at Siggyco for Ronnie to do? I was looking for a job, kind of bouncing around. And I got on there 36 years later. I got on there with temporary help, and I got my probation in. 36 years later, I retired. So that was a good story. A good place to work. Good, made good money, pretty good money, and provided for my family. I had a boy and a girl. And
Was Maytag another pretty big operation there in Evansville?
Whirlpool.
Whirlpool.
Yes, that Whirlpool is another place. If you got on Whirlpool, wasn't the greatest, the best money. Yes, it was. Yeah, yes, Whirlpool, Siggyco, Meade Johnson's, and Alcoa. If you got on those places, you had a lifetime job. Back then, people don't stay places now; they move on. But back then, in the 70s and 80s, if you could get in one of those places, you would probably retire there. So
the world that we know it with that now is gone forever.
yeah, it is. What was Roger saying to you?
What's that?
What was Roger Kaiser saying to you?
Oh man, Roger Kaiser is just a fantastic person. He just but the stories upon stories, because he was the roommate with Oscar Robertson at either the state or the Indiana All-Star game, or I think it was actually the Olympic tryouts for 1960 in Rome.
It is. You're right. The reason I know that, it's in his book. And yeah.
But Roger is just an incredible storyteller, and I'm glad he wrote a book. I'm glad I've got to interview him a couple times. I'm glad I've got to know him. I'm glad I've got to listen to his nostalgia. So, what before we get to your book, you were talking about state championship and Evansville North, how well they did. People, and this class system, people don't understand that the Evansville area, the Indianapolis area, the South Bend area, the Gary area beat up on each other so much that there probably could have been a lot more, there should have been a lot more state champions from those areas. But the best team and I playing at the best at that night moves on.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. You hit the nail right on the head. Here, I know Indianapolis had to be super competitive, but here in Evansville, my senior year, excuse me,
Hmm.
my senior year, there were four teams ranked. Us, Evansville Central, Memorial, and Wrights, I believe, in the top 10 in the state. And we so we beat. You're right. We beat each other up, and we played Memorial. Memorial actually won the section, but during the regular season, we beat them by 18 points. Now we weren't that much. We weren't better than I always thought and I'll still say this, that we're better than them, but it don't matter. Uh, but we beat them by 18 points, and then we lost to them in the final game of the sectionals. 13,000 people there, and you could not hear the whistle. The play would go on for seconds afterwards, but they won the sectional, and then I believe they advanced to semi-state. And I think Lagodi, I know Lagodi beat them, and Lagodi went to the Final Four. But I believe East Chicago, Roosevelt, or Washington, and they had a really good team in '70. I think they won it all with Stoddard and, oh gosh, no, that was the next year.
Turgovich was on that team too, I think.
Trying to remember, but yes,
Yeah.
the competition in the city here was outstanding.
Yeah.
Uh, Normally, if the team that won the sectional back years ago, normally they got pretty well. We almost always won the regional. The Evansville team did. And they normally, at least get into the semi-state a lot of the times. And then, it's very tough nut to crack. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, speaking of nuts, it's if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. But what 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 goes off over your head? Did you keep a journal in high school, college, or what just makes you think one day, you know what, I'm going to write a book?
you know, we had such characters, and Steve Howell, and I go back to him all the time, and we become great friends. But he had nicknames for everybody on the team. And for the longest time, do you remember Dallas North 40? Did you ever see
Yes,
the movie or read that book?
I saw the movie.
Okay, well, I read the book, and I thought, this has been 25 years ago. I thought, man, that is just the greatest book that ever was. But because these guys are college, these guys are pro athletes, money, and they're wild and outrageous. And I thought, man, ain't that the life? These guys, Don Meredith, and that whole Dallas Cowboy group. I can't recall the names right now, but and then it got me thinking. That's the cast of characters at Armstrong, and the things that we did, and as a college kid, and some foolishness and a lot of things. This could be a really good book. I'm thinking that I started thinking about this a long time ago. But then what you do at 24 and 20, what you do in your 20s, and then what you do in your 60s, and what you want people to know about you is just completely different. So I went, no, that's not Dallas North 40 style of book is not going to work. What I want uh, people to know about me and my family, it's kind of started as a legacy. I just want to do this for my family. They'll have it, and they'll know, oh, Dad, did some nice things on the basketball court, and had, some really great experiences. So started thinking more of it as a mature man and how to write it. And I just don't do things like this, Bill. I'm more of a humble person. I just kind of, I kind of start blowing my own horn a little bit. That's what the book really is. And I'm like, hey, maybe uh, people maybe people want to hear it. People really want to read about it. So always wanted to get back to Evansville and show the people, how my game had progressed and the type of player I had become. And they didn't get to see that because we could never we could never get past West Georgia. They won the NAIA in '74 with Turner, played at Vincennes. I played against him in high school. He was a couple years older, or a year older. Foots Walker, who played 15 years for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think he played all of his years for the Cavaliers. Man, he was a water bug. He was the fastest player, and they would spread the floor and give him the ball, and then nobody could stay up. We just couldn't contain him, and Turner could shoot the lights out. And then in '70, they beat us in a playoff game. We had to beat them to get into the playoffs. They had a player named Charlie Hamilton, and they got to they got to Kansas City that year. Also, they didn't win it all. So 2 out of the 4 years that we could have got in the tournament, they beat us. So and then it was kind of weird back at Armstrong. You could declare Division II and play in that. I don't know how that all worked, or you could stay. And we stayed in NAIA, which the two tournaments are very comparable. All the teams that play in each would be very comparable. I believe. So, but what I'm saying all that to say, man, I wanted to get back to Evansville because that's where they played the NCAA Division II tournament for 20 years, I bet, till they somehow lost it. But yeah, that's where and that would have given me a chance to, showcase what I had become, But then we played a lot of years out at the Armory in rec ball, public recreation, they call it, team sponsors. And that was a wonderful tournament. Carson Jones, I don't know if you've ever heard of that tournament, but oh my goodness, they would draw from Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. And predominantly teams they were all college players, most of them. I think that was the rule. And there was, a lot of good high school players too played in it, but tremendous tournament. Just ran into all kinds of, and I was, 3-point shot had come along, and I could shoot the 3-point shot. It was fun, so yeah, basketball's been good to me. It really gave me a lot of self-esteem. It really, I don't know what I've actually would have done without it. I know that's kind of, maybe kind of silly to say, but it's true. It really made me the person I am today, I believe.
How long did it take you to put together everything? How hard was it to find a publisher? How long until you're like, I'm going to write this book, and then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I have Armstrong Basketball: A Journey Through the Glory Days by Ron Skippy Hancock in my hands.
I did it pretty fast. It was crazy. I put an ad in the Savannah newspaper because I thought, hey, some writer from Savannah, editor, would love this. I mean, it's about their college. It's about a very profound time in Armstrong's history. It was just a great 4 years, and very kind of helped propel them into a really good place athletically. It kind of, they were really good in baseball, and girls athletics really got when that came along, really progressed. But we were early kind of trendsetters. Nobody responded, and I was like, wow, I thought somebody would want to write this, would want to edit this. So then I put another ad out, and this lady from Texas called me and said, I'd like to do your story. I said, really? I said, well, I mean, I'd love you to do it if, and I hired her and Melanie Saxton, and we become really good friends. It was kind of, and it went fast. I didn't know I didn't know how to do it. She goes, we can do this. And we talked on the phone a lot. And my wife was very ill at the time. Nothing was going on. We were friends, just doing this book. And but it went quick, and I don't do anything fast. I was just surprised that I was like, I don't know how this happened, but it just, she worked on it, drew it out of me, drew the story out of me, and just through notes and just within about 5 months, we had a book. And yeah, it was incredible. I was like, how's this work? And I'm so proud of it. I've had so many friends I've reconnected with, classmates, and people have told me, they would say, man, you described it perfectly, Ron. You described those years and the glory days, because I think it was the best time frame for Armstrong basketball, although it carried on for about 10 years. It thrived really well and kind of fell off after that. But everybody has said that is, they were really glad that I did it and that thanked me. And I've had a signing at Armstrong, and they put on the Alumni Association early when the book was first published. It's 3 years old now. And they really treated me well, and we had pretty good crowd, 40 or 50 people there, and it was fun, and a lot of ex-players that I hadn't seen in 30 and 40 years, some of them. So
where can people get the book?
Well, Amazon, you can get it by going on or going through Amazon or Barnes and Noble, but it's a print by order. And I have books that if somebody wanted to text me, I'd take PayPal or message me through Facebook and give me we could do could mail them a book. I've got some copies myself, but Barnes and Nobles has it, and Amazon is I know it's not, they're the ones that you go through.
Yeah, there's ones that distribute it. We'll put an email down at the bottom where somebody can hopefully get a hold of you and to get a copy.
Yes, and I have copies that and I would ship them to them, mail them the book.
Could you get back into your jersey today?
No, I didn't.
No. If you had your jersey handy from college, could you get back into it today?
Oh, could I? I'm not too fat, but it's all in the gut. But I'm still pretty thin. I don't know if I could or not, Billy. That's a good question.
Well, we've been talking with Ron Skippy Hancock. The name of his book is Armstrong Basketball: A Journey Through the Glory Days. Former Evansville North Husky. Take a look at the email and instructions down at the bottom if you guys would like to get a book. Ron, thank you for spending some time. I know I went a little bit long on you today, but thank you for spending some time with the Keeping the Nostalgia Alive show, and everyone will enjoy.
Hey, Billy, thank you. It's been fun. I enjoyed sharing. I hope that I was enlightened some people on things and get to know me a little better. I love basketball. I love to talk about basketball. It's been good to me, and thank you so much for having me.